The title for this class is 40 plus ways to make your lesson or your class more exciting. Now, I need to get a little note right in here before we take these different points, and that's that this first was written or given for those who teach mainly adult classes. With some of the little tykes, it would be a different story. But for those of you who teach teenagers on up through adults, there are a lot of these things will give you what you want to get, and that's variety in your teaching. Not just the same thing every time, but some variety. Let me give you some of these points. Number one, why not pre-record some of your lesson in one particular time? You'll find that you'll immediately have a whole lot of more interest. Then you might want to act out your story. Be an actor for a change and act that story. Put yourself into it to grab their attention and hold their attention. Another way of doing is from time to time, have a guest teacher come in. Maybe they won't teach the whole class or the whole lesson, but at least they can add something special, and that will make your class more interesting. Why not sometime just make a letter up about the lesson and mail it like you're going to mail the letter, but then read the letter in the class as part of your presentation of it. You'll find this will grab them right away. Another way is to use different projectors that are available for you. Have something visual that they can see. I like to use magnets. I use one in showing how people are, when the Lord comes back, they'll be lifted up, and I put a magnet in something, and then you have one figure with a magnet, and they start, that's just a little trick, but it'll add a lot of interest to your class. How about a dialogue? Have this working with several people or one or two people. Then tell the story in parts. Break your lesson into different sections and tell them one, and maybe you'll have a point for each one of those sections. You'll find this will give you the variety that you're looking for. Then you can teach the story, not maybe the whole story or a point in the lesson, and teach it just the opposite of what it is. You'll immediately, you have to correct it later, but they'll call you on that but they'll get the idea of that lesson because you put that in there. Then you might want to have listening teams and have them say, okay, your job this lesson is to listen for such and such, and you guys will listen for such and such, and you'll find out, you'll get them more involved in the lesson that you're giving. Another is sometimes use some clay or Play-Doh. That's this moldable stuff that you can make into different forms, and it's surprising what you can come up with that would grab their attention. They can see it. It's something they can put their hands on. Then also you want to leave out a well-known part of the story. You're starting to tell them, just leave it blank, and you'll find if you do that, they will get that story, and a lot of times, sometimes even break into your lesson and say, no, you missed this. What you want to do is variety to get them interested and get them hanging on what you're doing, get them involved with what you're doing. Another one would be to act out the lesson or the thought. Just act it out. Be an actor yourself and take that. What would I do with that? You might pantomime. The students have to guess whose part you're performing. You might pantomime something as a part of the lesson, and they have to guess who that is, and of course that's part of your lesson. You might make a tiny tent for the Bible story and have them get the idea of the feel they would have if they were in a tent in Bible times. Then a secret message. They have to guess what. Have something planned in there where you've got a secret message, something you want to get them across them, but they have to know about it and then start looking, see if they can capture what that secret was. Then you can use pictures, cartoons, something that's large that you can show them. They can all see it, and that sometimes that they'll remember that. You see, what we read and what we hear, we're going to forget a whole lot of it. But if you see something, if it's visual, you'll hardly ever forget it. So you want to be as visual as you can be. So you might even use objects from time to time. I've used them. Some object that will help them see and understand what the point of the lesson is. Then you might want to have a poster, make a poster for that, or you may find posters that have a relation to your lesson of today. Then you might want to have a class member tell the story, and you make the important points. As they tell the story, you can point out, this was what you want to catch. Then you might even give on this Sunday assignments for next week. Don't make them long and exaggerated or too hard to do, but things would get them involved in the lesson of next week, so when they hear it, they will become a part of it. And you might do the Bible story lesson to make it different in today's setting. Don't do it like it was in Bible times. Do it here in the year that we live, and you'll find out that would get the same story across, but it would be set in our day and our time. Also, you might have a large storybook for the visual. If you find sometimes children especially, large books that will have drawings in them, pictures and things that will help with your lesson, then you might want to have a test. Now you say, not in Sunday school. Yeah, well, you don't want to make it a big, long drawn out, but sometimes you want to have a little test. Did you catch this? What did he do? What did she do? Why did they do it? And that will get them into the lesson. You might want to have a bulletin board for your class so that they can see some of the things that you're doing and what they're planning for the future. You might want to have even something from the news reports that would be related to the lesson that we're having, the Bible lesson of today. And then don't forget, maps are really important. Most of us, we live in this time and we don't realize where the Bible was or what the Bible lands were like. If you have maps, that helps them visualize what was happening, where it was happening, and how it happened. And then you might want to have some visual mobiles, like you might make a small Noah's Ark out of cardboard if you could, or out of lumber, or out of something that they can see in that class. Then you want to make sure you have them understanding the timeline. When did that happen? And why was that important that took place at this particular time in history? Timeline is important. It helps them grab an idea of how the Bible story developed. You might want to make a collage of pictures or photos of this particular event or time that you're teaching. Then you might want to have a series of pictures for each point. Each point in the lesson have a picture that would some way visualize that. You might want to have listening sheets. I know I have a pastor, every time he preaches, everybody has a sheet of paper where they can follow along, and they'll have to fill in some of the things. And you might want to do that with your lesson so they can get involved in it as you teach the lesson. Then a participation with each student taking a part. You might want to have different ones be this lesson, or this character, or this man, or this woman, or this child, and that way they get involved in it. And then from time to time, you want to have with these lessons a list of what we believe. Why do we teach this lesson? Why is it important? What doctrinal point does this teach us that's important to us? And then don't forget puppets. Puppets may be used usually for children, but from time to time with adults, they love to have, and your puppet can tell a story that you wouldn't grab the same attention that puppet would. You want to make a shadow play. You can have a light with a nice clean wall, and where somebody could make the shadows do the lesson in the actions that they would take. Then don't forget, use that this boring classroom with nothing in it that's really interesting or very colorful. Decorate your room, do something to make it a little different, and let them realize this is important time and the most important hour of the week, our class, Sunday school class. Room decorations can sort of add a little bit. You put something up there, or even on your pulpit, decorate it a little bit, grab their attention. You'll be amazed at the difference it'll make with your students. And you might want to even try and come up with a creative title for the lesson that they won't even grab, sometimes even know what it was until you start the lesson, if you have something really creative. And then don't forget, among your class, break up into small buzz groups where they can talk about each point, and maybe they could say this is what they saw, and each group give a little short report during the lesson time that would help them understand and the whole class get more out of the lesson. And don't forget the biggest thing, the most important thing you'll ever find are questions. A good question, and they're not easy to make, but if you will learn to create good questions, it'll help your folks understand what you're presenting. And then you want to have perhaps parents or relatives or different ones in the family. When you have a certain lesson over some experience that a Bible person has, have them share what experiences they've had, how that happened to them for when they got saved. It's amazing how it adds a whole lot of real impact to your lesson. You might want to add, one guy was doing it, he had a one ad, he said, if pig farmer needs someone to feed the pigs, small salary, but all you want to eat. Of course, that's a story of the prodigal son. But if you can take a different approach to it, for your lesson, you're going to grab their attention, and they're going to go away with more to help them grow spiritually. And I just trust you'll do something to get variety. I don't want to do the same thing I did last week. I don't want to do it the same way I did it. I want to have as much variety as I can so I can grab their attention, they can learn, and out of that grow spiritually. God bless you in your effort for variety.